Thank you very much. A little bit of information about NSK before we get started. We essentially provide full-service IT, information technology, consulting services, managed IT services, project management, backup and disaster recovery, data security assessments for small to medium-sized businesses in multiple verticals. We have been partnered with TwinStrata for over a year. As Greg was mentioning, some customers don't always have the bandwidth required to implement systems like this or figure out exactly what data should go where. Or, although the installation of the product itself is very, very simple, sometimes having somebody that's done it before for other customers is beneficial. And so that's the type of service that we provide. We've branded the combination of the Amazon Web Services with the Cloud Array software as PAVIS. And we have different versions of that listed at the bottom of this slide, which is PAVIS Backup, PAVIS Storage, and then PAVIS Archive. Basically identifying some of the use cases that we have. So what I'd like to do next is just go into some of the the in-production uses for the Cloud Array Amazon Web Services combination, and just go through cases that where we've used the software and had success in solving some of the business challenges of our customers. So the first customer that I wanted to talk about is an online retailer located in Boston, and essentially, the problems that they came to us with, they're one of the many people still using a tape backup. And we see a lot of tape backup, and obviously they've had some problems with it. One of them is that the rate of data growth for this retailer, far outweighed the capacity of the tapes that they were using. So this for them resulted in incomplete backups. The backups themselves were taking days to complete, which is causing a delay in taking incremental backups and really reducing the data protection and really putting them at risk if there was some type of failure in either their production environment or their administrative environment. One of the other problems they had is that their tapes were just not going off-site regularly, again causing problems as far as having a really good disaster recovery and data protection plan in place. In addition to that, the accounting department for this company frequently had a need for data restores for whatever reason, and because they were using tape, obviously, I'm sure many of you know that the restoration process using tape can take days. So that was a real problem with them. So all the local storage that they had on site was Tier 1 storage, which tends to be very expensive, and they were looking to maybe offload some of that data onto a Tier 2 storage. They just had no archive location. So we looked at that situation and tried to come up with some different solutions for them. Obviously, one of the solutions is, well, let's buy additional tapes. There are some drawbacks to that. What they really needed to do, just purchasing tapes wasn't going to be enough. They really needed to purchase an additional drive that would support some additional capacity. And what we found was when you add up the cost of the drive, the cost of the tapes, and then the the regulatory compliance and their data retention needs, we found that really wasn't a viable option for them. Second option would be we could purchase a SAN, migrate to a disk-to-disk backup using a SAN, which could be an option. The only problem with that is it doesn't really solve the archive storage problem. The other issue with that is it's very expensive and doesn't solve the let's get the data off-site problem unless they purchase an additional SAN. So it's either hire another vendor to take off-site or purchase another SAN and add in replication. So by combining the Cloud Array services with Amazon Web Services, we were able to solve a lot of the challenges that I just mentioned. First of all, as Greg mentioned, it's instant setup. Download the software, and basically we can configure it in 1 hour. Because it works with the existing backup software, we didn't really need to change much. So it works with the existing schedule, the existing data that's being backed up. The only thing that we really had to do was install and configure the Cloud Array software, link it up to the Amazon Web Services storage, then point the backups to a different media location. This in and of itself saves the customer a lot of money on setup and configuration fees. If you had to implement a new drive or a new SAN, there's considerable fees and time associated with those types of solutions. The cloud array solution, as has been mentioned in the past, with the caching, automatically sends the data, whatever data is in cloud array, automatically goes off-site. So there's no need for additional vendor, which in this case I'll save this customer about $300 a month. As I mentioned, the accounting department for this customer had a high rate of restore requests from the IT department, internal IT department, and we were able to reduce what was taking days to taking minutes by using the same backup software that they had in place, but now going to the cloud array storage and being able to restore that data within minutes. The other benefit that was realized was that they were able, using the snapshot feature, they were able to take multiple daily backups, which greatly enhanced their data protection. So instead of having full backups running throughout days, they're now able to have their full backups run all in one day and then take incrementals multiple times throughout the day, which made the accounting department pretty happy, as you can imagine. And lastly, storage, because of the scalability and the ease in creating new volumes, it was very simple for us to create another volume that a customer would be using for Tier 2 storage that had a smaller cache, but was able to save some of the space that they had on their Tier 1 storage and just put some of that archive data out into the cloud. Another client that's a large private equity firm, and this is an example of how the combination of Cloud Array and Amazon Web Services storage can be used to save a customer some Tier 1 storage space by implementing a Cloud Array very quickly and easily. So they had 10 terabyte Tier 1 storage array, almost full, a couple hundred gigs basically free. And what we noticed going through and doing some analysis on their systems, a huge amount of the data that was on this SAN was being utilized for snapshots and replication, which was basically causing about a 4 times increase in the storage requirements. So what we kind of asked ourselves was, what would be a good, inexpensive way to get some of our Tier 1 storage back and reduce that 4x increase to cut it in half, essentially. The other thing is a large portion of the data we also realized was infrequently accessed, but still kept on Tier 1 storage. So they had a huge amount of archive data, and as you can imagine, large private equity firm, they have to keep their data, so their data retention requirements are pretty high. The benefits for this customer for implementing Cloud Array with Amazon Web Services is they gain some scalable Tier 2 storage available to any server. And so this customer did a really good job of organizing their data. It was very simple for us to implement the solution, create some volumes, and then move the data that was deemed archivable data that wasn't getting accessed very often, move that data onto these volumes, and with a small local cache, and put it up into the cloud for if they ever did need to access it, it would be up there. We didn't have to back it up anymore. We didn't have to snap it locally anymore. And so moving that data off gave us the opportunity to reduce the amount of additional storage needed to snap that data and replicate it off to their other SAN. Automatically sent off-site, like I mentioned before, for some numbers, basically the client was able to free up about 25% of the T1 storage at about a third of the cost of purchasing an additional SAN. It's probably time to turn it over to Kurt and ask some questions.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that great information you shared with us. Yes, we do have time for a few questions. Tim, who do I pay? Do I have an account with AWS and pay TwinStrata, or is it just one bill?
Sure. Great question. NSK, as an integration partner, is also a reseller of the Cloud Array solution. So, if NSK were to work with a customer to implement or figure out what the right solution was, implement the Cloud Array solution, we would then bill the customer as a managed service type arrangement.
Thanks, Tim. Tim, another one for you. If Cloud Array is self-managed, why do I need an IT services provider such as NSK?
So, as I mentioned before, the reason why customers typically come to us is because they don't necessarily have the bandwidth to implement a system like this or any other type of system in an efficient manner. A lot of times customers come to us who are at the verge of running out of storage or having large problems with their data backup and just want to have somebody come in and give them a solution that they know has worked in the past. And so that's the service that we provide. If you have a large internal staff that can has some bandwidth and can handle this type of implementation, you may not need to use a company like NSK. But typically that's where we find our services being of value.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, now a question back to TwinStrata and Greg. Where are the snapshots kept, and how can I access the snapshots I've taken?
Snapshots are kept in the cloud, so they're not on the device itself. They're actually kept in the cloud. So the overhead for that, it's a zero overhead snapshot, but nonetheless, the images are kept in the cloud. Still didn't say that right. The stored blocks are kept in the cloud. You can access those by mounting them as a volume. So within Cloud Array Control, you go into a particular panel, and you can mount the volume then. The volume would represent the snapshot. So the snapshot has a particular name. You just highlight that and you mount it. And when you mount it, then that's presented as a volume. You go to one of the devices that has an iSCSI initiator open, assuming there could be more than one. But you go to the iSCSI initiator workstation, wherever the case may be, and that volume will then be available. You rescan, and that volume will be there. You can then simply access the data through a standard drive interface.
Thanks, Greg. On behalf of Amazon Web Services, I wanted to thank TwinStrata and NSK again for the great content and presentation and support today. And for the attendees, we thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. And on behalf of Amazon Web Services, we wish you all the best in the cloud. Take care.